All right, everyone, welcome. We're going to be starting basically now. So Jennifer Bergstrom is going to come out and talk about building a culture of curiosity through gamification. So come on in and have a seat on the beautiful white chairs. I think this is Snow White. I don't know what they call this color, but Jen, do you want to come out and start your talk?
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jen Bergstrom. I'm Cloud and Data Solutions Lead for Parsons, and I'm here today to talk about gamification and building a culture of curiosity, which is something that I'm particularly passionate about, and I've had the privilege of running events at multiple levels across my organization over the last several years. So we'll talk about those a little bit moving forward here. So what am I going to talk about today? Well, we're going to introduce the problem space. Why does building a culture of curiosity matter? And why do we use gamification to build that culture? How does that help? What do we accomplish by doing it? I'm going to give you some gamification examples, events that I've personally organized and run over the last couple of years. And then I'll talk through some best practices and open the floor for all y'all, so you can bombard me with questions, throw rotten tomatoes, whatever you want to do after I'm done talking. All right, so first, the problem space. Why do we need a culture of curiosity? Why do we need to investigate and invest in getting our people to look and be curious? Well, as you've discovered, as you've been going to sessions all this week here at reInvent, technology changes insanely rapidly, right? There's continuous bombardment of new technologies, new techniques, new best practices, new strategies. And for our tech individuals and for our staff in general across organizations, it can be really, really hard to keep up with that. And it can be demoralizing in a way to your teams when they see how fast things are changing and realize they're falling behind. And that turns into kind of the opposite of a virtuous circle. It turns into a destructive circle, right, if you don't counter it. So building a culture of curiosity, getting people invested in that and curious, helps prevent that circle of destruction from going on within your organization. So let's establish quickly, what is the culture of curiosity? What's the point of that? What does it mean to have that? First thing, reasoned risk-taking is enabled, and that's really important. You have to be able to take risks. Anytime you're being curious and experimenting and trying, we all know that things fail sometimes. They may not work out the way we expected them to, or something along those lines. So we have to have a culture that embraces that opportunity to take risks, and that enables that and sets our people up to do that without fear. Failure then has to be viewed as a learning opportunity, of course, right? You can't point fingers and have recriminations when something fails. You have to be able to examine it and learn from it and grow from it. And innovation then is encouraged and expected from all of your people across the board, not just from some little innovation team stuck in a corner somewhere. What isn't a culture of curiosity? A lot of people, hear about experimentation and allowance for failure and things like that and think, well, maybe that means that there's no accountability. We can do whatever we want, anything goes, and that sounds chaotic. And yes, that would absolutely be very chaotic, and that is not a culture of curiosity, that's a chaos culture. While I love chaos engineering, this is not that, and you don't want that culture. So it is not that, it is the reasoned risk-taking, the failure as a learning opportunity, and the innovation encouraged and expected across every level of your organization. All right, so what are the results of a curiosity-driven culture? There are three primary areas that are beneficial, or that are benefited by a culture of curiosity. Your customer interactions improve, your employee experiences go up and improve, and your organization as a whole benefits. So I'll start with the organizational benefits because I actually put numbers on the slide for that one and I didn't for the other two. Organizations that drive a culture of curiosity throughout have 37% higher productivity numbers on the average across all of their staffing. That's a huge number. That's a huge improvement, and it really leads to good positive results. They're 92% more likely to innovate. Pretty much every big company that you see out here on the floor that is being successful, innovating, and growing has a curiosity-focused culture at their core. And then 46% improve their first-to-market deliveries. So they tend to be faster to get to the new deliveries, faster to pick up on the new technologies. And that's obviously an enabler for your company to be successful. And of course, we all want our companies to be successful. I'd like to have a job next year. If my company's not successful, I probably won't. There's also customer interaction improvements. And these are issues that the customers express or capabilities that they want you to deliver in your products that you're providing them. In a culture of curiosity, those tend to be addressed more rapidly. You can respond to them with a more agile response pattern. And your customer engagement then increases pretty organically as a result. And then on the employee side, of course, there's improvements for the employees. Employees like a culture of curiosity. It's fun. You can play, you can explore, and that increases your engagement with your employees, and it increases your retention numbers. People don't tend to want to leave a company that they feel is investing in them, is helping them grow, and is giving them an opportunity to explore. And then you address your mistakes quickly and fearlessly. This counters a fear culture and makes it so that people are willing to try those things. They're willing to take those calculated risks because they know that the company supports that and enables that. And then as a side result of that, of course, your skills as a company and as a technology organization broaden and deepen because people are out there looking and exploring. And the more eyes you have across your organization looking at the technology changes as they come, the more successful you're going to be at picking up on the ones that are really beneficial for your organization and your customers and bringing them into your products. So why gamification? There's a lot of ways to work on building a culture of curiosity. Gamification has some overhead associated with it. It's not free. It can be actually pretty costly to implement. Why do we use that? Why is that something Parsons has invested in? Why is it something I think your company should invest in too? Well, first off, it encourages a team-oriented and a team-focused culture. And what do I mean by that? We're playing competition games against each other. You would think maybe that puts employees at loggerheads. But it actually builds the camaraderie. If they're competing together, if they're even competing against each other, they get good ideas from each other. They, encourage each other on. They cheer for their coworkers, maybe if they're not involved in the competition. And it really gets people lifting their heads up, lifting their eyes up a little bit, and just getting to know some of the others within the organization. And an organization that has higher cohesion tends to operate more efficiently and more effectively over time. It also creates that positive employee experience I talked about, and that drives up retention, that drives up recruiting, that makes it easier to find and keep the absolute best talent that you want in your organization. And then it builds organizational fluency across the essential domains. So we'll talk about that one a little more next. So gamification is one of those things that everybody uses, or you've heard the word probably, and it tends to be thrown around for a lot of different things. There's a broad scope of events that you can run gamification across, and I call out 3 specific ones that we've used at Parsons. Large group, whole company, or significant part of the company. Parsons is a 17,000 person company, and I've run 2 events, one each of the last 2 years, that was all Parsons invited to participate. So potentially 17,000 people globally participating in these events. That's a large group, right? What's the point of that? Well, building organizational fluency in whatever the key topic is, the subject. And we'll talk about some of the events that I've hosted so that you can see where we're focusing on building that fluency. And then it drives that cross-functional engagement, especially with a large company or a large organization. You tend to end up in stovepipes just kind of by default. People are focused on what they're doing. They're focused on what they're delivering, who their customers are. And by holding a large group cross-organizational engagement, gamification event, you get people talking across those organizations. And so it breaks down those stovepipes and really opens a lot of doors for communication. So then small team, these are much more focused typically. They're, maybe a specific project team or, a specific organization or location within your company. And these ones are really nice for holding to customize to that specific team needs. So if your team is dealing with a customer that's really all in on generative AI, which we've been hearing so much about this week, you can hold a gamification event for that organization that's focused on upskilling on generative AI. And it's much easier to tune and tailor these to the needs of that smaller group than it is with the full company, the large group type of events. And then finally, individualize. You can take gamification down to a single person level and really make their day-to-day something that they're enthusiastic about, they're energetic about. And this lets you focus down even narrower to individual skill sets that you need from your people. And that fundamentally really helps drive that culture of curiosity when you're encouraging your individuals and gamifying what they're doing day to day at work. Where you can, you drive up that curiosity, you get them invested and involved and engaged at the individual level. which can be a very powerful tool. So some examples of large group gamification events. In 2022, I organized a company-wide Deep Racer League. We started it out with a workshop led by our Amazon solutions architect, where we taught everybody that attended how to build a reinforcement function in Deep Racer using that capability, and how to enter that model that they trained into a virtual league. We had 400 people sign up for interest out of our company for that initial workshop. Out of that 400 people, we had 200 people who actually ended up then submitting at least one model into the race that we organized. So that's 200 people that were playing with a reinforcement function, getting hands-on with it and really starting to understand it, that had never touched Deep Racer before, maybe hadn't done anything with AI or training a model or reinforcement functions or hyperparameter tuning or any of that before, and they were in their hands-on diving in and having a great time with it. For the Deep Composer team competition, that's the one that I organized for this year. So focused on generative AI, again, the big buzzword that everybody's looking at. This was a team competition, so we encouraged people across the company to form bands of up to 4 people. And then the bands composed a song using Deep Composer, so using those generative AI capabilities. They created a band logo and a band art, and then an album art to go with the song that they created. And then we had the entire company voting on 4 categories of 4 categories basically for the different entries that we had. And then we had an awards ceremony that announced all of the winners, and we treated it kind of like the Oscars. And we, one of the prizes was team shirts that had the team logo on the front, and then the icon that you see on the center of the screen there on the back of the shirt to remind them what it came from. We're also making custom cut vinyls of all the songs that they created, and those are going out to all the winning teams too. So a lot of fun. That one we had 50 teams that were created, or 50 bands, so over 100 individual participants actually making models, making songs, playing in there with Deep Composer. And then we had over 1,000 individual voters that voted across the 4 weeks that we did voting. So really good performance, again, driving up the organizational fluency, because for the span of 3 months, we were talking every week as a whole company about generative AI and about what it could bring in. We did tech talks to go with that as well, and the tech talks dove deeper into the capabilities of generative AI. So for the critical infrastructure part of our company, which focuses on large-scale construction projects, on bridges, roads, and smart cities and that type of work, we had a generative AI session that focused on how it's being used in the industry to build more efficient bridges, to reduce the use of resources that you require to meet the shear and strength capabilities for your bridge. So we tied it in directly to what they actually do day to day as well. Cyber the Capture the Flag events, that's the third one that I really want to call out here. These are competitive events, team-oriented. We host them out of my home office in Denver, Colorado, 4 times a year. And they feature a series of challenges that are focused on cybersecurity. So things like cryptography, scenography, network packet tracking, all of those type of things, penetration tests, any of those type of competitions. And we have a variety of challenges that we offer that the teams try to solve. And then the winning team gets prizes and gets awarded. And at the end of the event every time, we go over all of the challenges that we offered as part of the competition and talk through the solutions so that people are learning as they go through it. And those events I really love because they're open not just to all Parsons, but they're also open to industry partners. They're open to students. So we have high school students, college students that come to those events and are learning and getting hands-on with cyber security principles at an early stage and just learning and having fun with it. I think they're fantastic, and I absolutely love doing them. So moving on to small team, what does a small team gamification example look like? There's a lot of different ways you can do this. Some of the ones that we've done on ours are, innovation increments. When you're in an agile organization, build in at the end, the final sprint when you're within your increment, the chance for your engineers to just kind of play and explore. And we couple this one with the idea competitions that I have as the third bullet here, where we solicit for ideas during the regular sprint. What are problems that our customer is expressing to our teams? What are things that they're seeing that they think we can maybe solve or start to tackle in a 2 weeks sprint cycle? And then we take those ideas that are brought up from the competitions and we feed them into our sprint innovations and let people just try and explore and play. We've delivered some really cool solutions to our customers that the customers weren't expecting because we've done this type of thing. So they can be very effective. And then hackathons, when you have a persistent problem that you need to solve within your system or your service, you can have the whole team come together and make a game out of it and solve the problem that way by bringing all the minds together. And then getting down to individualized. These are things like Wall of Fame, recognizing individual contributions in a way that gets attention. So you see all the pictures up here on the left side of the screen. Those are some of the fellows from our organization that are getting recognized for the contributions they've made to the company. You can do of the month awards. I show an Innovator of the Month award that we award at Parsons because we really want to drive that innovation, again, all the way through our whole culture. And so we have people nominated every month for unique innovations that they're doing within their organization. And those can be ginormous innovations. They can be itty-bitty innovations. Really doesn't matter as long as they're consistently innovating. They're a candidate for recognition. And then finally, peer-to-peer awards. Really good way to build that team camaraderie and to build the culture of how can we do things better, what can we find to make things more optimized, more exciting. These are awards that anybody can hand to anybody else. And it's just a way to recognize. And it becomes a gamification thing because managers start tracking how many awards are my team giving out to each other. And the more awards they get, the better they feel about how they're managing their team. So, it encourages that recognition and that celebration. And then, of course, individual goals and performance metrics. If you set goals, you can see some of my goals on the screen over there on the far left, or far right, I guess, for you, sorry. You'll notice that one of them is red, overdue. So not always perfect success. Sometimes failure happens. But it's a way to encourage people to compete with themselves, to up their game consistently, and to really focus on the things that matter for the organization. And again, you can get your managers into this. You can get your teams into this. How many goals did you create? How many goals did you successfully complete? What was the scope of those goals? And what are you doing next? And it keeps you looking forward, moving forward, and helping each other out and growing consistently. So some best practices from gamification. One of the big things with gamification that I've seen that helps make it successful as an avenue for building that culture is using a variety of strategies and types. Don't expect that any one event type is going to appeal to everybody. And so when you're hosting an event, like with the Deep Composer event, we had the actual competition, but then we also had the voting, that anybody who maybe didn't want to dive into generative AI themselves could still be a part of it and feel like they were part of it and get interested in generative AI that way. We also had in-depth workshops that really talked about how you apply this and how it's useful. And then we have individualized learning tracks that we also add. So if people just want to study and learn on their own time, we've got resources that we provide that help them do that. It makes it a whole big encompassing event that meets the skills of every person across the organization, where they are and how they like to learn. Support it with the tailored learning content like I just talked about, and identify your event goals at the outset and tailor your event to meet those event goals. If you're going for general organizational fluency, that event is probably going to look a lot different from an in-depth building an expert solutions architect for AWS and ending in certification. They're both great gamification events, very different in the way that you implement them. And then don't ever force participation in the events. Forced fun is not fun for anyone. So just don't do that, please. And then don't stop with just the event. Make sure that you continue the conversation, use multimodal techniques and tactics so that you get people engaged and talking about things long after the event has ended. And I'm just about out of time. I was hoping to leave some time for questions, but if you have any questions for me, please come catch me after the event. I'll be hanging out for a little while. I also have all my contact information here. You're welcome to reach out to me via email, on X, or on LinkedIn. And also, please complete the session survey on the mobile app. Let me know how I did. Let us know how this venue is, and give us feedback. We really welcome that. Thank you very much.